Howdy, y'all. Zach here from the Yak Legion Podcast. And tonight I have some lovely ladies and an awesome fisherman. I got the hook, line, and chill crew, baby. Oh, yeah. We got Nina here. We got Tara, Micheal. We got the whole gang here, man. I really enjoy your videos, and I've wanted you guys on for a long time. I know we were talking through the holiday season, the 4th of July, and of course we all probably had plans, barbecues, parties, drank a few beers here and there. But I'm glad to have you guys on, man. So maybe you ought to introduce yourself. I know some of our listeners might not know who you are, but I imagine a lot of people do.
Well, I'm Micheal, and we're in and around Bowling Green, Kentucky. We've been running a YouTube channel for about a year now, almost exactly. It's called Hook, Line, and Chill, and on the channel we go out and we do trot line fishing, a lot of catfishing. We're on the Green River, and I have several friends that like to go, and here's a couple of the more regulars that get to go with me or want to go with me.
I was wondering, how did you guys meet?
Well, it's the world of technology. Really, just I think me and Nina met. I was looking for somebody to go rafting, and she had a rafting picture on Facebook, and I just said, "Hey, I want to go rafting." And at first it didn't work out, but we went fishing, and then we went rafting, and now we're still fishing. And me and Tara, we met through the email.
Yeah.
And just kind of chatting, and anybody that contacts me and they say they want to go fishing, I have a place on the front of my boat for them, and sometimes we turn the camera on.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's great. I know I've done a lot of trot lining and bank lining over the years. I've run turtle lines mainly, and I catch a lot of catfish on those. And, man, I like to catch some big old snapping turtles and bring them home and chop them up and cook them in a stew, man.
When you say turtle lines...
Well, yeah, what's the difference there? How do you set out to actually catch a turtle versus a catfish?
Is it actually for turtles, or just something you call it?
See, what I use with my turtle line specifically, I use a steel leader, usually the strongest steel leader I can get, because a lot of times when you use straight bank line to the hook, the snapping turtles can snap that line real easy. So I would use those big steel leaders, and I, of course, use those big snapping turtle hooks. You can get, I think Gamakatsu makes them, and the suckers are huge. And but there's a big flaw in that, though, because you would get snapping turtles that would twist off, and they would get on that line, probably a lot like a catfish does sometimes when he gets off a bank line. He starts twisting and twisting. And a snapping turtle, they can take their feet and plant it into the ground, plant it into that mud, and really pull back on it. And they can get that, you got a limb line hanging from a tree. They'll pull that tree limb straight into the water until they snap that line. And so what I did last year is I started using hoop nets for snapping turtles. And I set the hoop net in the water, and I'll use, we go frog gigging a lot, so I'll cut off the legs of the frogs, and we'll eat those. And then I'll use the torsos as bait, and I'll fill up little bird cages with frog torsos and bluegills, and I use chicken livers, all kinds of different stuff, man. You catch a lot of turtles in it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never set out to catch turtles.
I've caught them on a pole with smoked sausage, like amongst cattails and stuff, but I knew that they were there. You could see them, so.
People always comment and ask if I've caught any turtles, and I always said no, I've never caught a turtle on a trot line. But
wow.
There was one video this year where we caught a snapping turtle on a limb line, and
wasn't that you?
I think it was Mikey.
Was it Mikey?
Yeah, basically I got the hook out of its mouth, but I didn't get much of it on video. But you fish for any turtles up there in New York?
No.
You have turtles?
We have turtles in New York. Turtles are everywhere. I have two turtles in a bowl in my kitchen. They're this big.
She's got pet turtles. Yeah, good close to.
Yeah, I love fishing of all kinds, guys. Which got me to my next question. How long have you been bank lining? How long have you been running trot lines?
I think since I can remember, me and my dad would go put trot lines out. I like to say that I've trot lined every year of my life, but obviously I wasn't out there as a toddler. But I would say 6 or 7, at least almost 30 years, I have put a trot line out. There's only been like 1 year that I didn't. And I kind of got out of it the last few years. We still put lines out, but it was just kind of like just for a week or so. And then when we started this YouTube channel, obviously we tried to, do it a little bit more often. And then I tried to introduce some more fun to it, bring in new people, and that kind of provided me the inspiration to continue. And then we decided, which I hate limb lines. I've always hated limb lines. It's just too much stop and go. And we decided to go ahead and start adding those too. And when you got a big audience, it kind of helps, like
it motivates you, get you out the door.
Yeah, we post a video, and some of our videos get 100,000 views in the first day. It's like, well, it's worth it. It's fun. You get a lot of comments. We've gotten a lot of mail.
Oh my gosh, the mail. And especially the Instagram following. Like, do you have your Instagram?
No, I don't even have one.
You need to. I had to set my Instagram to public because I couldn't keep up with all the follower requests anymore. So I'm getting direct emails from people all over the place.
Yeah, I get emails from all over the world. Mm-hmm. And then we started giving out T-shirts and all that, and we made a little bit of money, enough to pay for our gas and our bait. And
it's awesome.
So pretty much my entire life I have been trot line fishing. And it's really always been a thing for me, like I rarely use a pole. I do use cane poles for like bluegills and stuff, but a lot of times what I do is we'll set the trot line, and then while I'm at work, I kind of got that feeling like I'm fishing right now. I just as soon as I get off work, I go check my line, It's always been, it's kind of like getting a lottery ticket, not scratching it off and putting it in your pocket all day, just keeping it for that whenever you get bored moment. And, trot line's always been a great thing for me, and I'm glad that we were able to portray it the way we have. Hopefully we can continue it on.
Great, man. That kind of runs like a trap line. You ever do much trapping? Like muskrats, raccoons, mink?
My great-grandfather used to, and I got a couple friends here, but I've never actually done it myself.
I like to do a lot of muskrat trapping. And it's like that, waking up on Christmas morning, and you going out to check your traps, you're checking your lines, and it's like, oh, what did Santa Claus bring me today? And you're just excited, man. You're like a little kid every day, man. You're like a little boy, and it's awesome. I love it. And I have a daughter now, and she's 2 years old, and I can't wait till she gets older and she gets old enough to go out there with me, man. It's a blast.
Yeah, I've heard stories. I'm not sure if I could do it or not. It's like you catch anything in the traps, don't you? Foxes, coyotes.
Yeah, we do a lot of pest control. I usually keep the cats out of there, though. I hadn't caught any cats.
Cats, yeah. I've seen some of the videos of the guy in Corbin. Can't think of his name. He does a lot of trap videos. It's kind of interesting. But now I'm more of a catch them live, and obviously a lot of the fish we eat, some of them we do let go, and that's just kind of my thing. I've never really been much of a hunter.
I'd keep them all.
And she wants to let them all go.
I'll keep them all.
Don't let Tara fool you. She's got the most emotion of anybody that I know. And when we get out there, I got to cut out a lot of it because she's in such...
Well, I don't like when the hooks get stuck in the eye.
Yeah, we eye hook a lot, and she feels a lot for these fish. And
yeah, he can't convince me that they don't have feelings.
I try. I mean, I understand that everything has feelings, but to put a human mind to everything is...
I don't think a fish has too many brains for a feeling, but, it is what it is. So how about you ladies, Nina and Tara? Did you guys do any trot line and any fishing before you guys met Micheal?
I did a little fishing with my grandpa when I was a kid, but I never trot line before, no.
How about you, Nina?
I've done a lot of fishing, mostly in Florida, and I grew up in Michigan, so a lot of freshwater, but I hadn't trot line until I met Micheal, so.
Yeah, awesome. When we first met, I was going to put a trot line out, and she helped me put it out.
Yeah.
That was the first one we put out last year.
It's like, ooh, this stranger is going to take me out in the middle of nowhere to see his boat.
Yeah, I got to get my rope, my hook.
And the stretch of river that is notorious as a body dumping ground.
Yeah, you don't ever see anybody on our stretch of river for some reason. But.
You ever find any dead bodies in the river?
There has been one that floated by.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they do turn up a lot actually, and like it's.
Oh.
I didn't see it, but
They always show up downriver, so I think that they're being dumped somewhere in that area.
they go missing upriver, and then they find them downriver. So there's only one path, and I've never seen it, but I always, you get like a log or something on your trot line, you're pulling it up, and it's moving. I always got that thought, what is it? But
Oh yeah.
so far we haven't got a body.
I work right beside the Ohio River, so there's every once in a while there'll be a dead body going through there, and I've actually found a dead body at my work before, and he was an OD victim, and he overdosed in the tree lot behind our work, and I was back here, I was trimming trees, and I saw this guy laying down, and I told him, hey, you can't be back here. This is private property. I kept yelling at the guy, and he didn't budge. I knew something was going on, so I had to call security. We called the cops, and that was a wild story, man. That's the first time I ever found somebody like that, and it's definitely crazy. But back to fishing, what kind of equipment do you guys typically bring with you? Let's switch from the dead body talk to the fishing talk now. So what kind of equipment do you guys normally use?
As far as me, that's why hook, line, and chill. Yeah, I know, it kind of sounds like Netflix and chill, and that is kind of a joke, but hook, line, and chill basically means we got a hook, we got hooks on a line, and then we go home and chill and come back the next day. And, obviously I use bricks because that's what my dad used. So as far as the trot line, I'll set it, a main line with some leader lines and hooks, and then we'll have bricks on it. And I've got my little 12-foot boat, and, all we need is a net, and I need somebody to run point, and I'm good. But these guys bring other pieces of equipment. She brings a hatchet sometimes.
And boots.
Oh, yeah, and her muck boots.
Oh, you can't forget your bud boots. River.
And Tara, she likes to bring fishnet stockings occasionally.
Yeah.
It's totally realistic.
Our first video, obviously we're trying to do kind of an alternative type of video, fishing with a little music, with a little humor, with whatever entertainment we can add, and that's what we're doing. And when she showed up, I said, just wear the wildest thing that you could think of, and I mean, she's an alternative type of person, and the fishnet I thought was awesome.
That was not the wildest thing I could have worn. But
yeah, I wanted the spiked hair and everything.
To make it down the bank and into the boat.
Yeah. So, as far as equipment for this channel, it's pretty simple stuff. And then for the YouTube channel, obviously, I've been changing up my camera. I think I've had 4 cameras. I still use every one of them, but I've got this thing where I'm like obsessively editing. So when I'm editing, I see the weaknesses, and I'm always like, oh, I wish I had a better camera. So I slowly save up money, and then I'll get a camera. And I guess another piece of equipment we always bring is a bucket. I've always been a bucket kind of person. At least 3 or 4 buckets, and instead of a tackle box, I got a bucket. And we carry the fish up the bank in a bucket. If I make a trot line, it's in a bucket. If I make leaders on a hook, they're hanging on a bucket, and that's just kind of how I do it. So
I'm sure you got the bathroom coffee can. That's what I always carried in my boots.
Yeah, and I had a question. Your channel, or you have a channel, or is it just a podcast?
I have a YouTube channel and a podcast, but our podcast is a lot more successful right now than the YouTube channel. I'm just starting off the YouTube channel. I'm definitely going to post this video and post this podcast.
Gotcha. And you're the Yak Legion, I'm assuming. And I looked up a little bit. Obviously, I was just making sure you were a real person and that we weren't setting up. These people kind of took their time out of their day, so I didn't want to, do it and this not be like a real thing. And it looked like you guys were into kayaking, fishing, bass fishing a little bit. I seen on your Facebook page that you had a lot of catfish pictures, or there was at least people with catfish. So you catch catfish in kayaks as well, I guess?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I have a Hobie Pro Angler, and this is one of the most top of the line kayaks on the market. And this thing's like a miniature bass boat. I mean, you could Google the Hobie PA, and man, about anything you could do on a John boat. I mean, of course, you don't have the space. You can't bring your friends along, pretty girl, nothing like that. Just you out on the kayak, and but you have everything there. You know what I mean? You have storage compartments. I have rod holders, and I could have two catfish rods hanging off the side of my kayak. Yeah. And I've caught everything off a kayak, man. Bass. Mainly I go after bass. I grew up catching catfish. I've caught a lot of catfish, a few catfish on the kayak, but I've caught a lot more on the bank.
Gotcha. And I think Nina does some flat water kayaking. And then I do a lot of whitewater kayaking, but I've never tried to fish, or I don't think you should fish out of whitewater kayaking. But,
the kayaks they make anymore, man, these are, I mean, they're for fishing. I mean, they designed this for the fishermen, and they're awesome.
Pedals.
Yeah, that's the one I got. I got a pedal drive, man, and it's hands-free. I could be casting and pedaling around the lake and be moving. You can also put that thing in reverse, and then you got the wind. You know, the wind will knock you up against the bank when you're fishing. So all I have to do is hit reverse, and I just keep casting towards the bank, and it keeps me off that bank. And they're amazing, man. It's a big industry right now, and it's growing. The kayak industry, I think in the next 20 years might almost be to the point where bass boat fishing is. I mean, the sport is just growing and growing and growing. And, man, you guys ought to try kayak fishing. What kind of kayak do you have, Nina?
I don't have one right now. I had to move into an apartment a couple years ago, but I'm hoping that I can have a John boat maybe starting next year, as soon as next year.
Yeah, I think she had, like, I got a Karma, like a whitewater Karma. But I think what they went out in was like the cheaper, I don't know what models they are, but the the plastic
Dolphin or like a Walmart or Perception.
Yeah, probably along that line.
We rented a couple while we were in Florida last, and that was a good time. But I mean, for the most part, I would love to just take it out on a brackish river.
Oh yeah. It's nice floating along, man. We'll take trips down the Little Miami River, and that river's so beautiful. It's actually the rated the most beautiful river in Ohio, and I'm lucky enough that I live 45 minutes away from it. And we'll just go down the river, drink a beer sometimes, relaxing, and man, I love it. Just floating along, kind of chilling.
That sounds cool.
It sounds like any good summer
canoeing.
Like I said, I go whitewater, and it's hard for me to do flat water anymore, but I'm not fishing. But at the same time, that's kind of a thing with hook, line, and chill, or at least for me, is I don't think we've ever had a fishing pole in a single episode. So.
No, we haven't.
Yeah.
And it's almost become an obsessive thing, like how long can we go without having a fishing pole? But I don't have anything against them. Really, actually, the truth is, right before the channel started last year, somebody stole 2 of my fishing poles.
Oh, wow.
My only 2 fishing poles, and they were in my building there on the riverbank. And it was kind of like that, well, screw it. And then we went trot lining like I always did, and I still haven't bought any new poles. So I got king poles. That's it.
Do you use bluegill on your lines? Don't you fish for bluegill, or do you net them?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were going to try to do some episodes on catching bait. We do use bluegill if we can find them. They're not as easy as they used to be. And then we use a lot of goldfish and skipjack, skipjack. Sometimes crawdads. I don't think I can find anybody that'll touch a crawdad. But
The crawdads don't really have much luck, though.
yeah, they don't. They're really just kind of, if I bring a crawdad on the channel, it's just for the spectacle of it, to see how these guys are going to react. I like to stick my hand down in a bucket and raise it up, and then be all stuck to my hand, just to see what they might think. But we use mainly live bait. I don't think I use, our last episode of the spring, we used some silly baits like soap and bacon.
I saw that.
So, but that was really just to be funny. But I didn't think we would catch anything. But so,
yeah, that was a cool episode. So,
yeah.
What kind of line and hooks do you guys use with your trot lines and your bank lines?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar, but in Walmart now, I'm not a big Walmart person, but they seem to be the one with the tar line. You could go to Cabela's. We got Gander Mountain here, Dick's, or I don't think they would count, but there's several stores and they don't have it. There's a tarred line at Walmart, the big line, I can't remember what the number is, 36 I'm thinking, but I might be completely wrong. And then they have a black tarred line for the leader, and then I kind of go back and forth. I always use circle hooks, but last year we used 8/0 because I'm trying to catch a big catfish. But this year we went to 6/0 and thinking that maybe I hook a little bit less fish, but the 6/0 per eye hooking just as much. So I might just go back to the 8/0 because the 8/0 are a little bit easier to take out as far as a circle hook, and the 6/0 are a little bit smaller. And I might, have to actually use some pliers eventually. People, they're always on me about not using pliers, but that's it's kind of a running joke with the channel. Like I never use pliers. My hands are always busted up, and we had several people mail us pairs of pliers and stuff. So we'll try to use them, or at least I'll give them to these guys. I don't know if you have any experience with circle hooks, though. I don't think pliers are really all that.
They're not that hard to get out. Circle hook's not.
Yeah, as far as using pliers, like is it worth it? Because you got to spin the hook. I don't know. Yeah, and to me, we're trot line fishing. We're not single. I'm not just casting a pole out, and if that hook gets scraped up, I just cut it off. I got it actually on a trot line that I'm going to use for a month at least, and I don't want to scratch the hooks up. So I don't know if anybody's watching out there and they're cussing me for not using pliers. There is a little bit of thinking behind it.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. So what hooks do you, what's your biggest catch on a trot line so far, or a bank line?
I've caught, my biggest fish I ever caught was 49, the blue cat.
Wow.
And
Damn.
several in the upper 30s. I think 42 one year, but that was kind of, it was still on a trot line. We caught a lot of times it's the blue cats. We caught a lot of flatheads in the 30s. It's just something about the camera. I haven't been able to catch a fish over 30 pounds since we started bringing the camera, but we've got a lot of fish in the 20s. I think she's got...
Yeah, it was like 21 or 22 pounds.
Nice.
Yeah, Tara was actually cradling a fish. I don't know if you saw that episode. But
Bertha.
It was called Bertha, and she was holding it like a baby, about, 22 pounds. And that was one of our biggest ones this year. I think we caught one a little bit bigger than that, but we've actually had bad luck as far as I'm concerned, and we're going to move to a different section. The section of river that we're fishing actually has a state record, 97-pound flathead.
Wow.
It's about 50 years old, but it's 20 miles away, same river, same section, and I hope to...
Same toxic dump.
Same toxic water. I always got that thought that, the big one is in there. So I fish with big lines, big hooks and whatnot. But, sometimes it's okay just to catch the small ones, but I'm fishing for a 30 plus every time.
Oh yeah. I know the big ones are fun to bring in, but those small ones are nicer to eat. I don't like to eat the bigger ones really.
Yeah,
They get kind of gamey.
We let most of the bigger ones go, especially with blue cats. I don't always let fish go on video, but most of the time that's actually what happens.
Okay.
I don't want to admit that I went through all of that trouble to just let it go. Some people I get, they catch and release, and that's an honorable thing. But we're trot lining, so it's a little different to me. I feel like if we got a hold of a big fish and somebody wanted it, even just to put in their pond, it would actually be a little bit more purpose than to hooking to a fish for no reason. But that's just me. And I've thought about showing the release on the videos, but whenever we make a video, I'm always thinking about how hard it's going to be to edit. And sometimes it's just like, no, we're not showing that. Turn the camera off, we're done. And then if we need to let them go, we do off camera. And usually we do it at the golden hour at the end of the day where the lighting's just right. And by the time we're done fishing, it's almost dark. So really we don't have time. But as far as, the fish that we catch, we let them go, I would say half the time.
Oh, nice. Well, man, yeah, they're there to get bigger and catch another day. That's for sure. So, how far a stretch do you normally run? Like when you get on your John boat, how far up down the river do you go?
I think this year we're right at 2 miles at the farthest point, and that's actually kind of far from me. But there is a big stretch of river 3 miles that I've never been, and like I said, because we're trot line or running a YouTube trot line thing, I definitely want to try to keep it interesting, at least for myself. So we'll continually go to new places. The Green River that we're at is, it's convenient. I own a lot on the river. There's a dock there, but in the future it would be cool to, even if it was just for like a weekend, to put a trot line or do some type of something on a different river somewhere. But we haven't got there yet.
Gotcha. So what do you have more success on, do you say, your trot lines or your bank lines?
Definitely the trot line.
Nice. Another one too, what other types of fishing do you guys like? I mean, do you guys do any other type of fishing at all?
I do.
That's all of yous?
I fish in Florida a couple of times a year. I really like going after the snook and the redfish. I haven't caught a grouper yet, but I'm really hoping that I can.
Oh, man. Imagine catching a grouper on a kayak and being towed around the...
It was just you. Like, you just have to follow it. There'd be no way. Same with a tarpon or, anything else, a tuna.
You just have to keep being dragged around the bay until it finally, wore out and you can finally reel it in. So I know you guys have your YouTube channel, and it's awesome, man. I really like it. What are your future plans for your YouTube channel? Like, what are you guys going to do next? I know you mentioned in August you were going to start trot lining again. Are you staying on the same river? Are you going to ever try lakes or ponds or any places like that?
Well, there's a lot of regulations in my area, and like I said, we went way up the river this spring, and there's a area downriver that I've never been. And as far as part of the show, we are going to put a couple lines in there and put some limb lines, and really just kind of the same show like what we did in the spring, and maybe playing around with the bait. But this time it's going to be a little different in that I asked if anybody knew where any homemade trot lines would be. And I actually got like 6 people, and they sent me trot lines. So I'm probably going to be trying out their stuff, seeing how it works, and then of course we'll mix it up. I always have all these grand plans, and hopefully we can do some. You mentioned fishing earlier. I mainly trot line fish, but my favorite fishing is bait fishing. I like to go out to the small areas with cane poles and catch what I can, and we got a lot of that in my area. And I would love to be able to record some of that, and hopefully we can. But as far as plans, a lot of times we're just winging it, one thing at a time. And I have some things that I'll want to do, or we'll talk about, brainstorm about, and we'll kind of be sitting around like this, or we're driving in a car, and if we can pull it off, we do. And but our bread and butter is going to be just the same old: get in the boat, run down the river, and see what happens, just like every other trout line check, And then our videos are really designed to be like, you never know what you're going to get, just like trout lining.
Well, most of the comedy comes, kind of at the moment. Like, a lot of it's really not planned out.
Yeah. We try to, not everybody can go, I have made some videos that never made it onto the channel because...
I made a great video that never made it.
She dropped my camera at the bottom of the river.
Oh, no.
I was kayaking. And
I went alone. It was the only time I've ever been trusted with his boat by myself. And I caught a big fish, but I lost the camera.
26-pound blue.
26 pounds, yeah.
No.
Yeah, the camera comes, she texted me and she said, I heard you caught a big one, because I had talked to my uncle, and she's like, yeah, but something like it didn't go well, and I was like, I thought she was joking, and I was like, well, I heard you caught a big one, and I was like, what'd you do, drop the camera? Just joking. And she's like, as a matter of fact.
I was like, how do you know?
And then I was like, well, how in the world did it come off the tripod?
Oh, the tripod went too.
Yeah, it didn't. And we drug, and we never did find it. But really, I just wanted my tripod back. But it's really just a funny story because, it was an S7 phone, an older phone that I had. That's kind of what we used last year, was literally a cell phone.
Yeah.
And we've kind of upgraded since then to an actual real camera. And we've even actually upgraded again to another camera for this fall season, but I haven't really released that one yet. But it's a little bit better.
Didn't you have a YouTube channel before Hook, Line, and Shell?
Yeah, me and my son, we made a channel called Random Reels, and it's just little skit videos. It kind of started with me juggling and
juggling in bathrooms.
yeah, that's that video, yeah. And then we kind of would write like a little screenplay, and then before I know it, we had like 20 videos, and I had some of these fishing videos on there, but they didn't really fit. And whenever I met Nina, I was like, there's the missing piece, and I think nobody wants to look just at me, and Nina was funny, and I was like, here we go, let's see if people will watch this. And we put a couple videos up, and we really didn't get any views for a while, but one day it just took off.
Yeah.
And then the whole, me and Nina are just friends, and she's not always available or at the same time that I am, so I was like, well, I'm going to go this Saturday, but she can't go, so I'll meet some new people. And then all of a sudden, we get like 5, 6, 7 people, and it becomes, that's what we do is, like I said, it's like trot lining. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. I think I've heard that off a movie somewhere. So I know you mentioned you had a son. Do you take him cane pole fishing for bait?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he goes with me a lot. I kind of get a little paranoid about the YouTube rules changing because he's 12, and I've heard if, you got somebody under 13 that they could disable your comments or whatever if certain low-life pedophile type people start commenting on your video. But
yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, so we do, we only do a couple videos a week, but a lot of times me and my son will actually go out on other days, or we'll catch bait, So he's not really like hardcore into it. He's kind of like I was. My dad made me go, and it was just something we had to do, and he knows how to do it. He's done it with me. And I think the favorite thing for him would be also cane pole fishing, catching the bait, counting. Sometimes I'll need 30 pieces of bait, and we'll go out and catch it, and then I might just take that to the river, and the next day we'll bait the line, or I might do a video baiting the line, or we'll bait it up and come back with the cameras the next day.
Now in Kentucky, do you guys have to have your tag on each line with your I think it's your wildlife number or your name, number, and address?
It's just, they changed it last year, I think. It's just a number, and you're supposed to put it on all your lines. And I usually mine's like a piece of duct tape with a number written on it.
Those little pieces of duct tape, though, are the only way that I can find the lines a lot of the time when I'm running point.
Yeah. I've always used white, the color white, because it doesn't exactly stand out, but if you're looking for it, you can usually find it.
Oh, yeah.
Because, there's always that fear that there's that low-life guy out there running your lines and stuff. And we've even juggled around the idea of using trail cams just to say, because sometimes last year we had such a drought of fish that, I don't know, I just felt like something was going on. There's no way we're not catching any fish, but because this spring was a regular season. I mean, we caught 100 catfish easy, and last fall there was several videos in a row that we may have caught like a gar, and we were glad for it. A gar, yes.
We can post the video now.
Well, hell, we had one video, not a single fish.
Yeah.
But it got like 50,000 views, so. But.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. So my next question. Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on here. I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time. I know I had a little story for you, and it's about some of my trot line experiences. I was a few years ago, me and my wife just got together. We hadn't married yet. And I was taking her, and I was running bank lines, and I was trying to catch snapping turtles, catfish, whatever we can catch. We were just running around town, and we could hit up a couple small ponds. Well, then at nighttime, I ended up having to leave and come back home, so I had to go to pull my lines real quick. So I had them out probably 12 hours, and I went back and checked them. So as I was driving back to the pond, I seen this kid walking down the street, and he had catfish and poles strung over his shoulder. and he had two big freaking channel cats hanging off a stringer on his side. And I looked at my wife and I said, I almost guarantee he got them off my trot lines. So I go down to the pond, and what do I find? I see my line, I see my identifier card, and I pull it up to empty hook. Man, nothing. They cut the hook off completely off my line. That really sucked.
Yeah, I've had a few. I had an entire trot line cut. I don't know if somebody ran over it with the boat or they just cut it. Or I like to tell the story that a fish broke it, but it's highly unlikely.
I've had people steal blue crabs out of traps, but I've never had my own line to be stolen.
And we have crab traps?
I have, yeah.
Oh, wow. What's that like? I've never done that before.
I mean, blue crab are awesome to eat, but for the most part, we just used them as bait. Like, we would set out 3 or 4 traps down outside of Fort Myers off the Caloosahatchee and just check them every few hours while we were fishing.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Catch lobsters and crabs and all kinds of stuff. What do you use for baiting those things?
Well, actually, you only need 1 crab to get it started because once you crack open the shell and pull the meat out, it makes perfect bait to pull the rest in.
Wow. That's awesome.
Well, you each other?
Oh, yeah.
You guys ever go noodling for catfish?
I mean, I can't say that I've officially ever done it. You know, I've been bit 1,000 times, and I mean, I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it off, but supposedly we got somebody that says they're going to take us either this week or next week, and at least me and Nina are going to go. They got a pontoon boat, and there's a lake here nearby, and they know several places, and I'm going to be the camera guy, and we'll see if we can put something together. But
I'm so nervous, but there will be alcohol involved.
But like I said, it's hard to deal with multiple people at the same time, especially. And this was me calling out on the channel, hey, will somebody take us noodling? And I did get a call, or I ran into a person out in public. A lot of people recognize us from the channel, and we exchanged numbers. And then he said that him and his wife and a couple other people were going to go either this week or next week. And I don't know if they're still on the nest, but we're gonna go check it out. I think, hopefully, you know, we have got a lot of rain, so. I don't know what kind of weather you guys have had up there, but the river here it can't stay still.
That's how it's been all freaking spring, all summer. Every catfish tournament I did, not catfish, every bass fishing tournament I did. I mean, the river was up, the lake was up. I fished one tournament where the lake was up 6 feet, and it was windy, and it was 30 degrees in the morning, 40 degrees in the afternoon, and man, that's a brutal tournament, sitting out there in the cold and the nasty. We've had some nasty weather up here in Ohio too. It's been a nasty year.
And when we put our first lines, if we had left them out, they'd be hanging up in the air.
Oh, yeah. Way up there.
Because it was probably 12 feet up, but, you know, I was like, we're going to start in April, no matter what, and it was 12 feet higher than what it normally was, and it stayed there for a month before it finally went down, and then it went right back up, and then it went down, and then it went right back up. And it's just now getting back down, and it's July. You would think eventually we're going to run into like a low drought, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. And by the end of this month, if the river's right, we'll be setting back up and going back out. But I think I'm actually going to add what I'm going to call a flood line, and actually tie a line to the trot line and put it up on a tree, you know, separate, so that because a lot of times when you go to the bank, you know, you want to tie pretty close to the top of the water because you don't want it. You know, you want it to kind of be as low as it can, and if you do that and the water comes up 6 feet, you know, it's almost impossible to get, even with the hook. So we're gonna try to. It seems like the world's changing. Maybe it's just this last couple of years, but we're gonna try to plan for the floods this time around.
Do you do better when the water's lower, or do you do good with the water being higher? Because I've seen the biggest flathead catfish I've seen out of the Ohio River. My buddy's cousin caught it, and it was in flooded water where the river come up, and it was actually not far from some dumpsters that were flooded in. So those catfish were swarmed on them dumpsters and flooded dumpsters, and they were chowing down. And I think he threw a skipjack out at him and caught the biggest freaking flathead I'd ever seen, man, out of that river. It was amazing.
Yeah, as far as my river, if it's flooded, I usually don't. I hardly ever catch. I mean, we're running trot lines, so it's a little different.
Yeah, that's true.
And when the water's settled, and it seems like it can be high as long as it stayed high.
Yeah.
Days, or it's barely creeping down. If it's creeping up, though, in my opinion, we don't catch anything. But that's another thing I wanted to mention is our whole channel. Like I've never wanted to be a channel about how to do this or how to do that. We just video log our experience, and I try to make it entertaining. There are much better fishermen out there. There's much better information on how to trot line. I prefer people to watch me and actually comment like, hey, here's a tip, here's this, as if we're equal, as if you're just someone that's ran into me on the river and we both are trying our best to catch fish. And, I bring these guys along and, we're all learning together, and then we add the aspect of a YouTube channel, it changes some things. We get a lot of comments, and I think what they're forgetting is we also have to record it, that aspect of the video kind of changes some of our fishing methods. There's some things that would probably work better, but they would look terrible editing, or they, it would ruin the excitement. And sometimes, what I call troll people, I'll do things just to get people riled up. Like the whole not using pliers. I just think it's hilarious. But
It's what you're keeping it entertaining, man. And that's why you're so interesting to watch, because you guys are funny, you guys goof off, and it's interesting seeing the ladies pulling them big catfish in.
Yeah, people like Tara and Nina, like, to me, for years I've kind of trot line fished, and occasionally a new person comes with me, and I take it for granted. I don't, to me it's old. I've been doing this forever, kind of boring, really. It's other than like that excitement, when you grab that line and there's something on it and you don't know what it is. But when you get to see these people do it, it's like, it's awesome. And then these two right here, Nina's kind of an outdoorsy person, always has been, but she
I could tell.
never really experienced it. And and now me and her kind of have been doing it enough that we could talk about it.
For a year now.
I have somebody that I could talk about trot lining with, and I really don't have that. They've all died. It was all old men growing up. And then Tara, Tara is one of the most interesting person I've ever met. And to get her out on the water, she's so emotional, so full of life that I'm in awe of her experience, and I'm glad that we're able to record it and put it out there for people to watch.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So before we wrap this up, I have one question I ask usually everybody that comes on my podcast. And I can kind of get an answer from all of you or each of you, either one. Well, what is your craziest experience out on the river? It could be your favorite experience or your crazy experience.
I got several, but now I don't drink. I used to drink, and that's part of the story. Back in the day, years ago, my dad had a bass boat, and we were trot lining that day, but my buddy, we got to drinking, and he got on a float, and we put a trot line string behind the boat, tied it to it, and it's getting dark, and it's a bass boat, so we're trucking along, and I'm seeing how fast I could go, and I lost configuration. I didn't know where I was, and I thought I was farther up the river than I was, because I don't know about you, but I know every snag in the river, because I see it over and over. But I thought I was up the river, and I went over a big, giant amount of snags, those, like a tree had fallen in, and I went completely over it in my boat. And, at first, I freaked out that I had tore my boat up, but I forgot about the guy on the float. And I drug him completely over that, and somehow he didn't get hurt. And I remember we were all just like, I can't believe I did that. And for whatever reason, the guy didn't let go. I drug him all the way through it and over it. Didn't even pop the float or anything. But that's kind of more of a stupid story. But that was
a good one, man.
Definitely something that I regretted doing, and never told my dad about it.
At least you didn't tear up the boat, right?
Yeah. Got anything, Tara?
No, I mean, I went canoeing one time, and in Pennsylvania, and it was the one and only time I ever went canoeing. I still never went again, and it was for a few days, and it was fun. But I kind of like tore the bottom of the canoe out because I didn't know what I was doing, and and sometimes the rocks you can't even see them; they're like right on the top of the water, and
You tore a hole in it?
Well, maybe a little.
Did it sink?
No, it didn't sink. Thank God, and it was like on the last day, so that was pretty cool. But it wasn't cool because it wasn't mine, and that sucked. But it was cool. That was the last day. It was fun. It was a fun time.
You survived.
Yeah.
Polarized glasses. You wear those when you're kayaking or you're boating or anything, and you could see probably 2 or 3 feet into the water a lot better.
Yeah, that's how I saw the jellyfish.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I
what?
can't wear
That's
glasses.
crazy.
A jellyfish?
You could feel them on your legs, but you couldn't see them until you put polarized sunglasses on. And
I never heard of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
My eyelashes are so long, I can't do it. What's your story, Nina?
Okay, so I was in Florida. I was in a canoe. I don't know if you guys know what a canoe is. A lot of people I found actually don't. It's like a canoe, but it has a little flat spot on the back instead of dual points, so that if you want, you can put like a trolling motor. And we were overachievers, so we had like a 35 horse on it. And we were out at the mouth of the Caloosahatchee, and we were just tearing up the snapper. We were pulling them in like crazy. We already had like 22, 23 of them in the boat. And meanwhile, the sky was just getting blacker and blacker, and I kept saying, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. And finally, after we had about 30 fish in the boat, we decided to take off. And because we were in such a shallow bottom water vehicle, we were like, oh, we'll just save some time and kind of, go in a straight line and ignore the navigational beacons. And we ended up hitting an oyster bar that was like 5 or 6 inches under the surface. And it skidded the whole bottom of the boat, and then it ripped the motor off the back. And at this point, the storm was already upon us. So we just had a really long, slow paddle for about the next 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
It was really warm, and we had so many fish. Like, at the end of the night, it was worth it.
You lost the motor?
No, we got the motor. It was sputtering around on the oyster bar, and, like, it died. And we actually got it up over the edge of the boat, and, it just sat there. Like, we didn't do anything with it, but...
That's awesome, man. Well, hopefully, man, someday you guys come up to Cincinnati, I can hook you up with some kayaks, man, get you in my PA. And I think once you get in that sucker and start pedaling around, man, you might fall in love. You might start running your trot lines off a kayak.
Yeah, interesting. We were talking about that a little bit. I don't know if I could, you probably wouldn't want to go by yourself.
No.
Yeah.
I go by myself all the time.
Or trot lining, I don't know. You trot line in the kayak?
You know what I do usually? I fish these wildlife areas, and there's big marshes out there, and there's islands in these marshes. So I use my kayak, and I'll go out to these islands, and I'll actually set them to where I can get off my kayak onto the island and set my hooks off the limbs there. And I usually set my nets that way too.
Yeah. Well, limb line, I'm talking about the actual trot line. Or when I think of trot line, it's bank to bank.
Yeah.
And you're running the line, and where I'm at, there's a current, a little bit of a current, and it's like the number one fear of a trot liner is to get tangled in the line and fall out.
Yeah.
So in a kayak, I just imagine being twisted up like a spool or something, and
yeah. That's probably how you'd have to do it. You have to spool it up like a pool noodle, and just wrap it around the pool noodle as you're pulling it in or as you're taking it out. Us kayakers, man, we use pool noodles for everything. We use them for rod floats. Attach a pool noodle to anything and it floats, right?
I got them on my tripods because
I've put them around the tops of buckets to use as like a camp toilet.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Open water?
No, in the bucket.
Oh, they just like made
It makes like a cushy.
they made a
toilet seat.
rim around.
Yeah, it makes like a
you missed
cushy
the bucket
seat.
part.
I missed the bucket part. I thought you just made a rim.
Well, if you miss your bucket,
It
then
just
you're in
like
deep
floated
shit.
in the water.
You are deep shit.
No.
Literally.
Oh, that's great. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. Is there any sponsors or like shout outs you want to do before we end this?
Really, we're kind of a rogue channel, and I've been approached by a few people, but I think we're doing pretty good by ourselves. And all you subscribers, if you're watching, I will be sharing this link. I assume that's okay.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks.
And you know, we'll be there. We might do one or two more videos in July, just silly stuff, but we'll be back in August. And you know, you can have us on anytime. Just give me a few days notice, and we'll try to set this up. This is my first podcast, so I thought it went okay. So.
Oh yeah.
YouTube channel called?
What'd you say?
What is your YouTube channel called?
Oh, the Yak Legion Podcast. And then also, it's pretty simple, right? And then I also run the Buckeye Kayak Fishing Podcast, and that's the podcast I run for the Buckeye Trail. And then I'm Zach Carell on YouTube. I've got turtle trapping videos on there where I do where I use my hoop nets. I got some videos of me catching bluegill and catfish off my kayak, and just random stuff, really, random fishing adventures. And we usually post a podcast on YouTube for every episode. And what I'll do is I'll post a podcast on the podcast. That way we can get some listens on that podcast. And then a few days later, I'll post it on YouTube. And then we'll get the people on YouTube. That way it gives the podcast a chance to, because that's where I'm making, we're making a little bit of our money on is the podcast. And so we want more people on the podcast, but we definitely want to enhance our YouTube channel. And maybe I'd like to maybe talk to you after or on another time, or maybe message you back and forth and just maybe have some questions for you about how we can grow our YouTube channel, man. Because your guys' YouTube channel is very successful. And
yeah, well, I've been at it. Like I said, the random reels, I kind of learned all the back and forth, and you got to add all the pieces of the recipe that you need, and Hook, Line, and Chill is, like I said, we're an entertainment channel. We're not a how-to fish channel. We're entertainment. So, and I think that sets us apart a little bit.
And you guys are very chill. So your name suits. Well, all right, guys. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for listening to the Yak Legion Podcast. I'll have a short announcement after the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this is a little bit different than what we normally do on Yak Legion, where we go more into kayak fishing. But you know what? I like these guys. I've been watching them on YouTube for a while, and really wanted to have them on the show. And you can do all kinds of things on a kayak. You can run your bank lines. You can run traps. You can catch fish, bass fish, catfish. I mean, the only limitations are your bravery. That's your only limitations on a kayak, is how brave you are. Especially this year, I'm actually going to try this summer to pull snapping turtles on top of my Hobie from my nets. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I have all my fingers.
Well, I'd like to watch you actually catch some snapping turtles sometime. I've been really wanting to make some turtle stew, and I don't know much about actually going out and harvesting the turtle.
Yeah, she was mad that I didn't bring that turtle.
I was furious. I'm still mad, actually. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I just let it go.
I love catching turtles, but man, they are a pain to skin. That's the worst animal I've ever dressed in my whole life. And I've done deer, everything. Reptiles, they got that rough skin. They're really hard to cut through.
I'll tell you what, though. Anytime I've been up against an alligator, I've cured several alligator hides and kept the heads. We put them over red ant piles, and we just let them do all the work for us.
Oh, wow. Where are you originally from, Nina?
I'm from Michigan, but I've been spending a lot of time in South Florida for the last 12 years or so, and I'll end up moving there full-time at some point, but that's still at least a year off.
I know you mentioned Michigan. I was thinking alligators in Michigan.
I left Michigan when I was still pretty young. I was only maybe 11.
Oh, wow. Well, that's awesome, guys. Well, thanks again for coming on. Peace out.
See ya.